The central mechanism of the Old King's Crown is playing a card face down, simultaneously revealing it, and comparing who has the largest number. You'll do this 3 times a round, trying to wrest control over the game's 3 regions. This mechanism is a fundamental part of board gaming's lexicon, a beat that rings through time. From coup to citadels, we've all been there. We've had our fun, and now it's done. But the idea lingers in our consciousness, and sometimes it reemerges with a vengeance. Nothing excites me more than breathing new life into an old song, and the Old King's Crown does not sit heavy on this reviewer's head. It's a rich, brash melody, captivating with its arresting artwork and elaborate asymmetry. But give it a few listens, and you'll discover a subtle melancholy underneath, thoughtful interactions and mechanisms that give more depth and intrigue to persistent plays. It's a captivating package that's both familiar and new, bombastic and considered. If the story ended there, I'd be impressed. But the Old King's Crown is also designer Pablo Clark's first game. Astounding. And he also illustrated all of it and wrote the rulebook. At this point, I feel like asking, Pablo, what else can you do? Do you play the clarinet? Have you mastered tap dancing? I bet you're fluent in 4 languages. Is there anything you can't do? To say I'm impressed is saying very little when what I'm holding in my hands is a game that brought me joy, intrigue, competition, and endless hours of me prodding for more and the game spilling its cardboard guts generously. It is a triumph, an indie surprise that captured my attention with its sumptuous artwork and surpassed every expectation to reveal itself king amongst many. There. You wear it now. Actually, I'm taking it back. It looks better on me anyway. We begin where all good stories begin. The death of the king. The prig has kicked his final kick, and now we must pick a new prig. Who could it be? Who could it be? It's you! And me. We're all prigs here. Or at least hoping to be. On offer are 4 distinct factions, each with more or less legitimate claims for succession. The nobility is, well, the nobility, drawn like decomposing demons of wealth and hoarders of power. The clans are the dispossessed, true people of the land, once exiled, returning by sea to reclaim what is rightfully theirs. The uprising speaks for itself, the rising tide of the forgotten, neglected and angry, weak with power, but strong with subterfuge. And the gathering injects the mystical levity to this grim setting via a cult, of course, because cults are good vibes places, just very nice, normal, good cult things. Whatever you choose, you will get 14 of these chunky tarot-sized cards that I've completely worn out because I couldn't get enough of this game. Each faction has a mechanically identical but an artistically expressive deck. Asymmetry fiends, don't you worry, we'll get to the root of your joy soon enough. The predominant thing is each card's power, the 10 representing your faction's claimant to the throne, and everyone else from the 9 to the lowly 0s, your loyal supporters, pledging their lives to the cause. Each round you will play 3 of these cards face down, 1 to each of the game's regions, and when the clash for the region begins, you will flip everyone's cards face up, compare the strengths, and the highest number wins. Winning a clash means you get to select one of the 2 locations in that region and receive the rewards, a victory point and a special ability that lets you manipulate the game state in nifty ways. Or in the case of the battlefield, you simply get 2 victory points. This is a deceptively simple system because the game does not live in the framework, but in the nooks and crannies in between. For example, each player's deck contains 1 assassin. Play it, and when you reveal it, you'll kill every other card in that region and put them in the eliminated pile, which is where all the shameful failures live for the rest of the game. Sounds amazing! Why would you not keep doing it? Cards numbered 1 through 4 have the follower status, meaning they are not only invulnerable, but will also ensure that whilst the assassin is on its unaliving spree, it will also unalive itself. Or in other words, if I played an assassin, I better make sure that no other player played any followers, which would be very easy if I had X-ray vision, but the cards are face down, this could be anything. Okay, so it's rock versus paper, where the paper is very low value in all cases unless there's rock. Is that it? Oh my, we're just getting started. This zero value card has two abilities, ambush and retreat. When you reveal it, you can return it back to your hand, humbly bowing out of the fight, or add a second card from your hand. Your hand size is generally not very card rich, so spending 2 cards for one fight is a hidden cost that's less favorable than you might think. But consider the possibilities. If there's no assassin, you can send a high value card to secure a victory. If there is an assassin, you can drop a follower, wiping them out permanently. If there are no followers, send out your assassin. Everybody's dead, Dave. Flank lets you move the card from the current clash into a clash that hasn't resolved yet, boosting strength there by 5. And your 10 has Rally that returns it to your hand at the end of the round to permanently harass other players, like the guy who keeps asking every game night if people want to play Talisman. Just let it go, buddy. The ship has sailed. Which I imagine to many of you so far sounds like a fairly arbitrary game, and if that was the pitch, I'd be like, cool. I remember Citadels. You have fun with that. I have better things to do. The first tactical layer of the Old King's Crown is initiative. Each of your abilities will be resolved in turn order, meaning that being last is the biggest advantage you can get. Imagine 2 players, both revealing their zero with ambush and retreat. The first to go has absolutely no information to work off of. What am I sending my assassin into? Literally an ambush. That sucks. I don't like this. Slapping myself out of here. Bye! The other thing that also happens in initiative order is the deployment of your wood. Each supporter is basically a +1 towards the fight. You only have 5 of them, but if you use them, they go to the pile of shame and you can only fish them back out via special means, meaning that each supporter has the ability to tip the fight, scale the numbers above the usual curve of 0 to 10. But because their use is limited, you can only deploy them effectively after you know if the other players have deployed theirs. This chunkster is not a warrior, it's your herald. If you don't know what a herald is, it's basically what ancient people used for the herald confers no mechanical advantage towards winning a battle, but will grant you an extra victory point if you do and select the location you place them on. Additionally, if other players place their herald there as well, you get to steal a victory point from them. This is a lovely mechanism. A fight in the abstract is not worth much. There is no strong reason to win one area over the other. They're all mostly a victory point and whatever special ability you prefer. But in practice, through confluences and emergent play, a fight can mean as much as 5 or 6 victory points in a game where the winning score hovers around 20. The default point for the area, the point from your herald, 2 extra points from other players' heralds who've all scrummed for the last round all or nothing fight, another point from a special kingdom card, and you're in the battle of the century. Every reveal, every ability deployed or snuck in, pivoting the scuffle into a spin-inducing edge of your seat roller coaster. In these moments, the Old King's Crown has a flair for the spectacular, a blockbuster, pulling out all the Tom Cruise stunts in the finishing crescendo. But there's subtlety towards the herald as well, because its primary function is to signal intent. Placing your herald is saying, listen mate, I'm gonna come at this location hard, but do you actually mean that? Is it a misdirect at the cost of a victory point, a bluff with disastrous consequences? If it fails, you'll watch everyone leech free points from you because you sent out your herald undefended. With almost nothing to dib, being first confers no advantage and every disadvantage because every move you make is laced with misinformation. How do you ensure that you're last? Well, the default rule is that it's whoever has the least victory points, which is a nice catch-up mechanism. But the thing you will quickly find in the Old King's Crown is that the default tends to crumble pretty quickly. These symmetrical layers of tactics are something you'll discover in your very first encounters with the Old King's Crown, and if you enjoy confrontational games with flair, style, and showmanship, it's a cracking good time. But the depth starts to really unravel once you've become accustomed to how each faction differs and operates on a strategic level, with its mechanical vagaries and intricacies only becoming evident once you've survived the succession war a few times. There are 3 layers of asymmetry: your kingdom's favor, tactics tiles, and unique faction cards. First, your kingdom's favor, which is basically a unique faction ability that you have to work to activate. It's a cool mechanism that we're not gonna bog this video down with because it's a small thing in the grand scheme of things. Next is the tactic tiles, powerful abilities that you deploy mostly once per game and never repeat. Technically, there are ways to refresh them, but they are so rare that they might not even appear as options in any given play session. And even if they do, they come at the expense of foregoing something else beneficial. For example, if you're the nobility, you can invoke martial law. Topical. This lets you choose any region where you have a card with this cannon symbol and basically lock it down. The cards each player pitched face down, well, those are still there, but no one else can sneak anything in or out, which on the surface might seem like an arbitrary ability. After all, we could have locked ourselves in with a monster. To explain martial law better, we must first examine that cannon card. First of all, it has invulnerable, which makes it immune to assassination shenanigans. But it also has a command called deploy, meaning that instead of playing it regularly, let's pretend that none of these cards are here because all the fights have resolved. Then we get to play a card with deploy, and then next round, everyone still plays all of their cards face down. In summary, you can pull strength values from 2 cards and withstand assassinations. And if you're in the nobility, you can lock that area down to prevent chaos. That's amazing. But is it foolproof? No. And now you're beginning to see the beauty of the Old King's Crown emerging. Then there's the special faction cards. They are unique to each faction. There are 5 of them and they aren't available at the start of the game. You have to scrounge up a resource called law to acquire them. I say 5, but actually one of them is once again identical for all factions. I imagine that right now, to you, all of this might not seem like a lot of asymmetry, but it turns out you're not gonna believe it. In a game where structure clashes with unpredictability, injecting a single element of chaos can wreak havoc with every system of power. There are 2 types of cards you can acquire. The first type are just new faction cards. For example, if you're the nobility, you can acquire a second card with deploy. It's got a strength of 3 rather than 5, but pull them together and you've built a wall out of gold protected with cannons. Good luck getting past that. Oh, and it also gives you victory points if you put 2 guards in front of it. Lovely. Or how about a new queen? And by new, I mean the old one, the one everyone used to like in the good old days, instead of this snotty boy king that everyone hates. Card's got real boss baby vibes. So now, instead of 1 pinnacle card, you have 2, which is going to be a real hassle for everyone else to deal with. The second type are HQ cards, permanent additions to your abilities. For example, the Uprising lets you purchase the Moonshine Cove, which is a permanent 3rd slot for a kingdom card. What's a kingdom card? Glad you asked, because everything I've described so far is baby steps, learning the ropes. Kingdom cards, on the other hand, are so game-warping that each play will feel like an entirely new conundrum concocted out of choice vials from the menagerie of venom. Here's the gist. Before you do anything else each round, you all pitch 1 card towards this auction. Yes, once again, you're all playing a card face down and then flipping it face up. If you have the highest value, you get first dibs into acquiring a game-breaking ability. Old King's Helm makes all your cards not quite immortal, but provides an active benefit if someone attempts to eliminate them, putting the Uprising player, whose major focus is elimination, into a bit of a pickle. Unearthed Iron Gear will bring back a card you used that round back to your hand, meaning you can reuse cards next round or even use them for abilities that trigger after the clashes, such as your cannons with the deploy effect. The Sword That Slept is a one-time +5 towards any clash, which is likely to swing a loss into a victory whenever you choose to unsheathe this old relic. I just picked these 3 cards off the top of the deck at random, each and every one of them. I could talk endlessly about the strategic vagaries they introduce, and the deck is so big, you only go through a third of it each play. This auction might seem simple at first, play a card, highest card wins, but it masquerades ingenious mechanisms that emerge gradually with experience. Winning the auction simply gives you first dibs. Everyone gets a card if they want one. So if you're not particularly fussed over priority, you could win a fantastic ability at the cost of one of your worst cards. The card you used for the auction then sits under your player board, guarding the kingdom card it won. During the next auction, any player who pitches a card of higher value will be able to steal your kingdom card instead of acquiring a new one. Or in other words, shopping for kingdom cards is, well, just like shopping, where you sometimes find yourself with a steal and can't quite believe your luck. Except, nothing is ever a bargain, there's always a catch, and now you subscribe to an underwear delivery service just because you wanted a free pair of boxers, and the cancel button is so obfuscated you can't even find it. Not that that's ever happened to me. It's undeniable that the Old King's Crown is filled with carefully considered and ingenious mechanisms, but what I admire most about it is its bravery. Because here's the thing, I bet you that there's a swathe of board game enthusiasts who turned their noses the moment they heard me describe the core mechanism or compare this game to Citadel's. Auctions are a divisive mechanism, and hey, I admire people who know what they want. If you firmly only play games with predictable outcomes and low interaction, I mean, you're obviously not going to enjoy this. Here's a review of Galactic Cruise for you. But if you like games with a scope for grand strategy, I'd say don't dismiss the Old King's Crown just because you think it sounds like it's all reactive tactics. There is much more strategy here than meets the eye. You'll just have to play it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times. It gets good in season 3 is what I'm saying. On the surface, you're playing rock, paper, and in a free player game, scissors, but actually you're loaded with gimmicks that will fire off if you've gauged your opponents well, considered the herald placement, accounted for the cards they've already played, and know their faction abilities. My arc of toying with the Old King's Crown began with Frustrated Fumbling, an elaborate and complex game that rewarded me with a slap anytime I tried things. I was playing tactically, and the game was a wild stallion with no interest in being tamed. But persisting through that did not feel like a chore because the scope is always evident. Each tactics tile, each kingdom card, each obscure mechanism hinted at roads still untraveled, and it's only when I strode unashamedly into the unknown with a burlap sack and a can-do attitude that I found a kingdom of wonder. I started playing strategically, and the horse just followed along. And this is a kind of bravery, to be a first-time indie publisher and put everything you have into a system that has such a potential to alienate the very people who are primed to enjoy it. But it is not that bravery that wows me, for there is another, much more sinister one. I want you to consider how you will visit the world of the Old King's Crown and what impressions it will leave on you. Take the main board of the game. It displays the kingdom you are fighting for itself, from castles to farmsteads to ruins to piles of lives lost. But it is the perspective that is curious, because you're not just viewing a top-down map made out of hexagons, you watch it through a window, The implication, I think, is that this is an outpost secreted away from prying eyes where you hatch your schemes of domination. This is the perspective of your character, but it serves a double meaning because from the perspective of the player, it is a window into the world itself, a brief glimpse of the unfamiliar you will have no chance but to intimate yourself with if you want to play the game of crowns. This was past Efka desperately trying not to write, if you play the Game of Thrones, you either duh or duh, mostly because George R.R. Martin isn't really cool anymore, but also this game deserves better. I think I won't be the only person to make the obvious comparison to the works of Hayao Miyazaki, each frame full of characters, life and bustle, rich with detail and little nuances to spot. Ghibli-esque is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, especially when someone combines glamour with serenity. Most of the time, when people describe something as Ghibli-esque, they forget that Miyazaki's work isn't just happy-go-lucky fluff, but really rancorous, sinister stuff hitting under the guise of beauty, a carnival mask covering up an ugly truth. When I think of The Old King's Crown, I think of my first visit to London. The accumulated wealth of empire on full blast to wow you into submission, from grandiose bridges over the Thames to a literal tower of Barad-dûr unironically scraping the vista, the theatrics of Leicester Square, the endless restaurants of Chinatown, the street performers in Piccadilly Circus, the insurmountable real estate of Mayfair, the invisible royal seat of Buckingham Palace. I know it's not Buckingham Palace. I just got really tired walking all across London because there were tube strikes, and this felt like a close equivalent. All designed to humble you. If you read speculative fiction, you've probably heard of the book A Memory Called Empire. I know it doesn't look like I've read this book because it's brand new, but that's just because I got this copy for the video. I read mine on a digital e-reader. The story follows the ambassador of a subjugated nation who is sent to the heart of a galactic empire. The cruelty and colonialism is what inspires her to fight the regime, but it is the splendor and the architecture and the language and the poetry that makes her love her oppressor. True, passionate, indelible love. It's a relationship that tears at the heart of the soul, because to love empire is to play the game. To lose the game is to lose yourself, and to win it, you have to be a real bastard. I was captivated by The Old King's Crown with its art. That same art invited me to wander its streets and obsess over the little details. For example, in every faction deck, the 6 represents some kind of vault of knowledge. For the Uprising, it's the librarian, kind demeanor, mouse in her pocket, the ultimate expression of the place where everyone, no matter the status, can access information for free. The Nobility 6 is the master of records, a crotchety bureaucrat guarding the knowledge unafforded to the hoi polloi. And the Gathering just has a creepy owl man that is just as likely to reveal the secrets of the universe as it is to eviscerate you. And as I wandered and gorged on the Old King's Crown's secrets, I learned those streets until I knew them intimately, until they became my home, and I found myself manipulating my hand state, exploiting turn order, downplaying the power of my kingdom cards, quoting obscure rules that even seasoned players overlooked. I started playing the game, as in I was every character in succession, all for tiny specks of leverage. I became a bastard, a prick, because it's only pricks that get to don the robe and hold the scepter. That's when I understood that at the core of the Old King's Crown there is a unified truth. It invites you with a premise. You're all playing for who gets to be kings or queens of this world, and when other games might use this setting as a cute backdrop, this one actually means it. Its theme is its truth. It pervades through everything until it reaches and twists you to bring out the very worst. At that point, everything fell off. I was busy contemplating reviewership vagaries. I weighed how sharp the game is at 2 versus how chaotic it is at 4. I mused on how the didactic structure of the rule set made it easy to omit important timing steps. I made observations about the rulebook poorly explaining the difference between actions and commands and how it led to incorrect play. I lamented the somewhat uneven learning curve for the 4 factions. An experienced player piloting the uprising would struggle to win against a new one in charge of the clans. But when it truly clicked, none of it mattered. The arcane rules of the game represented the purposefully inscrutable rules of empire. The difficulty of playing the uprising became representative of the real-life near impossibility of rebellion. The old King's Crown hummed itself into a harmony, each element a concordant note in the motif. To present all of that so confidently, in spite of every chance of it being misjudged, that is a bravery like no other. A couple of notes before I close this review out. Generally, we don't accept review copies. In this case, it's a bit more complicated. We have purchased a copy of The Old King's Crown when it originally went to crowdfunding, but the game is only going to start delivering to backers this month, so this is obviously not that copy. Instead, it's a loaner copy that we will be mailing back to the publisher when ours delivers. We wanted to get to grips with this nuanced and complex game in advance for a timely review, and whilst ideally I would have just purchased this second copy to make the situation cleaner, the publisher was not set up to make sales on the convention floor, which is where I got it. We've also not had the chance of trying the day one expansion that's releasing simultaneously with the main game, but I want every excuse to dive back in, so expect coverage in the future, probably on our podcast Talk Cardboard. I also briefly alluded that there's some rules confusion between actions and commands. I've noticed many people making this mistake in play, so for those who are to own it, I wanted to give a better explanation to the difference between the two. Actions are things that are denoted by these symbols. Commands are 6 codified abilities that usually appear on faction cards but have their own rules. Crucially, some commands are explicitly worded in such a way that allows them to be performed many times per round. Actions, however, can only be performed once per round. The trouble is, there are some actions on Kingdom cards that grant you commands. However, that action can still only be activated once per round, and the command lasts for as long as the action dictates. Be wary of these Kingdom cards because they catapult the game out of control if played incorrectly. And finally, I mentioned multiple times, this is a first-time production from an indie publisher that will fulfill after successful crowdfunding, which generally means it is likely to sell out immediately after launch. If you're interested in it, probably pre-order your copy now, which is another reason why we wanted to get ahead of the launch window. And just like Eerie Idle Games, we are also indie. If you want to support the kind of board game review work that is becoming rarer and rarer, consider donating to our Patreon. The link is in the description. Oh, and do subscribe. This video has a chance to take us over the 100,000 subscriber mark after 12 years of reviewing board games. This would be really incredible. See you soon.